tell everybody how you and why you became a parent governor, what that involved, and how that's taken you to where you are today.
Well, I've long been interested in education. I've got young children of my own, so when an opportunity of the local primary school where my children attend became available, I thought I'd apply. I was encouraged by friends who said they thought I had the enthusiasm and the skills, the experience to bring to the role, and so I was delighted when I got the role and really keen to get my hands dirty and just making it a better place. We were asked to check some policies, and one of them was the RSE policy. And there I had some concerns, and I had to do a bit of background reading and checking statutory guidance to see whether we were actually compliant and fulfilling our proper role as a school. Now I had real concerns which I then had to bring to the meetings. Those concerns appeared to be completely ignored, and it eventually led to me having to bring a complaint against the governing body regarding the way it had been drawn up and the content of it, which in turn led to me actually being removed as a governor of our school. Now, thankfully, with the CI's help, I was able to seek legal advice, and the end effect is I have been fully vindicated. The school has acknowledged that I was seeking to act at all times in the best interests of the school. And so I am now reinstated as a governor back in the role thanks to the Christian Institute.
So tell everyone what your initial concerns were with the RSE policy, the relationship sex education policy.
That became a government requirement a few years ago. Every state school had to have one. The policy was developed in-house by some of the teachers of the school. It was then presented to the governors for feedback and an approval, essentially, before it was rolled out to parents in consultation. Now, some of the clauses in there, which related to things that children would be taught, raised a few concerns with me. One particular one was in Year 6, and it said pupils should be able to understand terminology associated with and define the terms sex, gender identity, and sexual orientation. Now, when I met with some of the teachers responsible for the policy, they talked me through it a little bit. I realised they'd be using the genderbread person, which raises serious issues of non-compliance. It teaches that sex is not binary, which raises massive issues about being unscientific for a start. It's not even referred to as male and female. It's manness and womanness and is on a sliding scale, and most alarmingly, you put yourself on the spectrum according to whether you adhere to certain gender stereotypes, such as the clothes you tend to wear or your interests or your hobbies. Now, those are stereotypes, and we are told by government guidance not to reinforce harmful stereotypes. We've been working, in culture and education for years to undo those stereotypes, to allow a boy who tends to be into drama and likes wearing brighter colours, and he's not really into football, to be perfectly happy with himself like that. And likewise, with girls who want to be engineers, you were pushing them into STEM subjects. And here we have in primary school educators reinforcing those harmful stereotypes again. It's a backward step, and it's extremely harmful for young people. So I raised that as a particular concern, and the use of that genderbread person or any similar resources which reinforced those harmful stereotypes, which teach unscientific ideologies as fact. Education has to be pluralistic. You cannot further one particular ideology at the expense of others. Indoctrination is not what education is about, and quickly we could follow that route if we allow things like the genderbread person be exposed to the children in our classroom, especially with nothing else. No balancing presentation of opposing understandings of the nature of sexuality, sex, etc.
So you were doing your job as a governor to examine the policies you've been presented with. It's part of your role to examine and to assess and to challenge and so on and so forth. Having done that assessment, you had some concerns. You raised those concerns. How did the school, how did your fellow governors respond to those concerns?
I met with quite a hostile response. It was actually really disappointing and quite shocking that there didn't seem to be an open ear at all. Everyone else was happy with it. But there always has to be an openness and readiness to actually scrutinise and say, have we got it right? In the end, they voted on it, the governing body, and they all voted for it, apart from myself. My concerns were swept aside. I was told the only thing I could do there was bring a complaint.
Parents need to be consulted on these things. Did that happen?
Now, that's where things didn't go so well. As governors, we didn't get to hear of any of the parent feedback. Other governors didn't get to hear of mine. I didn't get to hear about other people's. And I know there was feedback later on. Parents mentioned to me that, fed back some ideas and some thoughts. And the policy was then rolled out in a virtually identical form to the original one, which was put before governors, so it was clear the consultation had basically made essentially no difference at all.
So you raised concerns, parents raised concerns, and you're saying that essentially, effectively, none of those concerns were taken on board?
Absolutely, yes. And to my knowledge, to this day, the same policy which I had concerns about is still being taught to the children in the school.
So you brought us to the point of saying that you raised a complaint. Talk us through what happened next.
I brought the complaint, and it was first heard by a governor from another school. He did make a few recommendations the school should implement, and one of them was that a specialist RSE advisor should look at some of these contentious resources and then advise the school whether they should be used or not. So I felt there was some understanding with some of these resources weren't simply okay to use in the classroom. However, the complaint was dismissed. Certain aspects of my complaint weren't actually addressed at all. So I escalated it, and several governors from other schools examined the complaint. They also looked at whether these recommendations had been implemented. They found they hadn't largely, but nevertheless, they ended up dismissing the complaint again, leaving this in the same position where the policy was being rolled out, and school children exposed to what I believed were non-compliant and harmful resources for the children. A few months after I received that response, I was called into a meeting with the head teacher and the chair of governors, and I was told that another governor was bringing a motion to remove me from the governing body, that I had not adhered to the collective responsibility of the governing body to get behind a decision that's been agreed, and in bringing the complaint, I had shown my dissatisfaction with it.
So let me get this right. So you're asked as part of your role to scrutinise some policies. You scrutinise this particular policy, the RSE policy, Relationships and Sex Education policy, and you raise some concerns about that, concerns that it may be unlawful. You highlight those concerns through the proper channels. To your mind, they're dismissed or certainly not given sufficient attention. So you complain about that, as is part of the process. They're not really looked at, so you escalate it, which is part of the process. And so for having done your job and followed the process that was in front of you, a complaint was brought against you for not going along with everybody else, is what it sounds like.
Absolutely, yeah. It made me feel like the whole role is a matter of rubber stamping. If the head teacher wants it, everyone else wants it. You just go with the flow. Even if you think something's wrong, we're there to help the children, to improve the school, and if everyone's going to turn a blind eye and follow the crowd, that's simply not going to happen. As governors, we are told if you think something's wrong, you speak up and you draw attention to it. Which is exactly what I did, and it was really quite shocking to be removed for breaking the code of conduct where I felt, actually, I've adhered rigorously to that code of conduct, and I feel, actually, others are happy to turn a blind eye to the detail in order just to go with the flow.
And your complaints weren't upheld, but the complaint against you was upheld, and you were in fact removed.
That's right, exactly, yeah. I mean, it was quite shocking. The meeting in which I was removed, there were all sorts of irregularities and inconsistencies. Someone voted without even being there or hearing my side of the story or anything. Yeah, the person who chaired it was, in fact, the governance manager for the whole town who had been discussing with the chair of governors the allegations and which one should be brought against me. It seems that it was all a fix, essentially, to get rid of me because I was a dissenting voice who would speak out against things like this harmful gender ideology.
It's very unusual for a governor to be removed, isn't it?
It's very unusual, yes. I mean, it comes with a 5-year ban from sitting on the governing body of any other school. So even had I decided to remove my children to another school and wanted to use my skills, my enthusiasm on their governing body, I wouldn't be able to. It felt almost like kind of being sacked for gross misconduct of having done something really quite terrible.
Why do you think the school, the governing body, the local authority seemingly are all so wedded to this flawed RSE policy?
I think nowadays everyone is so afraid to stand up and be counted for their view on it, even if that view is perfectly in line with law and with statutory guidance. Nobody wants their child or any other children to be indoctrinated. We have the right legally to have our children educated in line with our own religious and philosophical convictions. That should be ensured in school. I can only imagine the people are afraid of the reaction they might get from others if they stand up and say, "Actually, I'm not sure we've got this right. I'm not sure we can teach that. Little Johnny could actually be Jane and vice versa." Everyone's so afraid of the reaction they might get, but that sort of fear-driven policy making is a route to disaster.
And your view that biological sex is real, that gender isn't fluid, that's a very widespread view, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. There'll be many, including an awful lot of scientists who adhere to exactly the same views. And anything that departs from that is unscientific, should never be presented as a fact, which the genderbread does. It's got a very misleading introduction, which says gender is not binary and puts off anyone who thinks otherwise. Now, that's simply not acceptable in education.
So at the point when you're told that you've been removed for 5 years, how are you feeling at this point?
I feel really quite shocked, surprised, really disappointed that having done everything that I knew to be right and acted in the very best interests of the school and the children, I could be simply thrown out. It's a bit of an embarrassment. There are other parents who were on the playground with me, know what's happened. It was just an awful experience. And I couldn't leave it there, conscientiously for my own children, for all the others in school. So I had no real choice but escalate it to the Department of Education, which you're allowed to do when your complaint has passed through the full complaints procedure of the school. I did that in July 2022, and I was told they had a 15-day expected turnaround on their complaints. It has now been around a year, and I've received no substantive response whatsoever from them.
Are you disappointed by that?
Hugely. I'm actually really shocked at a time when this is an extremely hot issue in society. There isn't a day that goes past without something to do with transgenderism or gender ideology in the headline. And we know that this has been the case for a long time now. For there not to be a response on such an important issue, which touches on safeguarding all sorts of other areas, for there to have been no response at all within a full year, virtually, is simply not acceptable.
But you've been vindicated.
I have, and that's the very good news. Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted that I have been vindicated. I have been restored to my position. It has been acknowledged that at no point did I act without the school's best interests at heart. And it's superb to be finally back doing the job which I wanted to do all along. And I think if only I'd been able to spend all that time and effort which I poured into the process of getting back again, into the school itself and the work there to improve the school, to help the children to get the best outcomes, I would encourage anyone else who is a governor to do the same. Don't turn a blind eye to things that you think are wrong. Pursue them, and with the help of people like yourselves at the CI, there's always help to turn to if you need extra support, advice, or backing, so that everyone can help their schools as much as they can.
It's been a very long process for you.
Very.
What's been the impact on you, on your family?
We're talking over 2 years now, since the first complaint. It inevitably takes a toll, the amount of time, effort, thought, stress. You can't overestimate those things. It's taken away family time. It's led to long hours of reading and investigating and time that I would have loved to pour into the school and into the work of governing. But hopefully those days will yet come.
Got any regrets?
Not at all, no. It was very worthwhile. Anything that relates to children's education, safeguarding, and ensuring that they have an education to learn what are facts, not just people's opinions forced upon them. Anything that does that is always worthwhile. And standing against something that we believe is wrong and harmful is always worthwhile. So although it was an awful lot of hard work, I would do it again.
And what would you say to other parents or teachers or governors who would have similar concerns to you in their situation?
I'd say take courage. Don't turn a blind eye to anything you think is wrong. Often things can be sorted really quickly and easily at the classroom door. If not, speak to people in school, arrange a meeting with your head teacher, see if you can find a way through. It's only if you can't that you then have to think about bringing the complaint. It's no one's desire to go through the complaints process. Most things can be sorted, but if that is the only way to go, it has to be done to get the right outcome for the children in school. And frankly, I think anything that's this important, that pertains to children's understanding of their identity, who they really are in the sight of God, how we are made, male and female, the nature of sexuality between a man and a woman when they're married. Anything that relates to these big questions of ourselves, our identity, how we live, are always worth pursuing. There's always help as well. You might feel alone. I would not be able to do this alone. But with the help of, folks at the CI, I had all the support I needed.
We've said it's been a long journey. How has your faith helped you? How has it helped the family during what has clearly been a very difficult time?
Oh, my faith has been an absolute anchor. I've drawn strength from the Lord throughout the whole process, from beginning to end. I've sought wisdom from him and I felt his encouragement, his support throughout. Really, everything we do because we're mindful of him to bring glory to him and to pursue what is right. So, knowing that I'm doing that and feeling him helping me has been a massive, massive support. It's been, really, the reason why I did it in the first place. And what's been really encouraging is to know that even when you're knocked back ultimately, if you're doing what's right, right will come out of it, whether it's a month down the line, a year down the line, or whether ultimately we'll only see it, in heaven. Who knows? But we know that if we do what's right, we're planting good seeds and good will always come with it. So I felt a real strength in just knowing that I'm standing up for what is right and standing up for the Word of God.
For more great content, like, subscribe and hit the notification bell.